Greetings, friends, and welcome to Captain Samuels.
And Ira's subterranean book cave.
Yeah, buddy, we've got a special guest today, Ira from SF Words of Wonder, and he has an excellent popular YouTube channel, and he's actually one of the people that inspired me to start mine. And Ira, welcome, and thanks so much for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and today we're taking a look at Dark Universe by Daniel. How do you say his name? Galouye or Galoo?
I think it's Galouye,
Galouye.
but
Yeah,
I looked into that, and it was I'm not positive, but I think that's what it is, Galouye.
yeah. Thanks, man. He was a United States author from Louisiana, and so it kind of has like a French sound to it, actually, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, The Dark Universe was first published in 1961 in novel form and was based on the 1951 short story Rebirth. And I actually got mine from a subterranean cave. Check that out. It's all beat up and
Yeah, it looks
stained and
like
ripped
it.
apart. Yeah, man.
Mine's a little crispier here.
Okay, you must have got yours from the scientists.
Yeah, this came from above ground.
Nice. So, my good man, would you like to give us a brief spoiler-free synopsis, and I'll pitch in.
Okay. Yeah, so this is one of those books that throws you into a weird situation where everybody in the novel really doesn't know what's going on. But as the reader, you kind of have a little bit more information than they do. And we have a bunch of people who are underground in a cave system, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of artificial light that they're using. So right away, you start realizing that they can't see anything. They're using echolocation mostly. They have a bunch of different tricks for navigating through this labyrinth of caves. They have kind of a civilization. There's kind of a competing civilization, and there's a lot of mystery. They're using terminology like atomics and radiation and things like this, but you get the feeling that they don't really understand what they're saying. It's kind of ancient lore or myth almost in their little society they have. So right off the bat, going in, I knew this was about a subterranean group of people, and I'd heard maybe it's kind of some sort of post-apocalyptic thing, but that's how you're thrown into this one, and there's a lot of mysteries up front that even the reader has. A lot of the mysteries have to do with these characters trying to figure out things. But yeah, that's the real high level overview. What do you got to add there?
Yeah, it basically focuses on the protagonist named Jared Fenton, and he is the son of the Prime Survivor, which is like the leader of this tribal group that lives underground. And as he walks, he has to click stones together or sing or hum, and then the sound vibrations give him information about the world around him. And his ability to hear is extremely acute, more so than the other people in the caves, which arouses suspicion that he might have the ability that the rival cave people do, called the Zivers. The Zivers have some kind of ability that allows them to see, and because Jared knows what's going on, he can tell if a person's eyes are open or closed. He can tell if a person has hair in front of their face or not, or if they have a beautiful bald cut like us. Then that's unusual for him, and they're a little bit suspicious of him. Because compounding that suspicion is at the beginning of the book, he is hunting down this giant bat called a Subat, and he really wants to kill this thing because it trespassed on the tribal area. And he and his friend Owen pursue this thing all the way to the gates that lead to the outside, capital O. And he goes out there and he gets bombarded with this um, soundless sound, is how he describes it. And he doesn't know what to do with it. It's like looking into this another dimension. All his perceptions are all messed up. And so Owen gets captured by these beings that come from the outside world. And when Jared gets back, he says, "Oh, sorry, everybody. I took a peek at the outside world, and because they're already suspicious of him because of how good he is able to perceive his surroundings, it starts this domino effect where he uh, is getting in trouble pretty much everywhere he goes and ends up this refugee running around in the cave system. And I wanted to know if you wanted to just talk a little bit about Della, the love interest.
Yeah, so there's these zivers that you mentioned who seem to
Mm-hmm.
have some sort of ability to see like infrared,
Mm-hmm.
and so they can detect heat, but everybody else has just been using kind of echolocation. They have, I forget what they call these things that they set up and it creates a bunch of sound and
Echo
if
casters.
yeah, echo casters. If someone
Yeah.
turns this off, it's like shutting off the lights because
Mm-hmm.
it's really giving everybody the sense of the space that they're in. But there's two groups of these people who have remained separate. There's kind of like the lower level and the upper level people. And so Jared is kind of they kind of want to unify these two groups, the leaders. So they set Jared up to marry Della, or that's the idea here if they hit it off. And hopefully, if they hit it off, then this will kind of unify these two groups together. And so you get a little bit of, this little political thing going on amongst them as well. And she's a little different. He notices some things about her right away because she doesn't seem to have the echolocation down the way he understands it. But she also has the ability, like when they're walking through that cave and she's chucking these stones into this very tiny little puddle and hitting it perfect every time. And so he's really confused by her abilities, really.
Yeah, and the book is largely presented as mysteries, so it's not really made clear initially like why Della is able to perceive the world around her so well without using clickstones or needing the Echocaster. And there's some other mysteries too, like the religion that you kind of mentioned earlier with like the myth, so that the god of this world is called the Great Light, and they don't know what that means. And the demons are called, I think, Cobalt and Strontium, and they don't have the meanings that we have for those words. To them, those are just like demons.
Yeah, I'll expand a little bit on it. So,
Yeah,
I think he did a really good job with some of that because, like, they even have this idea of darkness, but they don't understand what it is, even though they're submerged in darkness.
yeah,
And even like you mentioned, that there's some sensory inputs that they just don't understand from living this way for generations, is the idea that you get pretty quick. And like some people choose to walk around with their eyes open and some people choose to walk around with their eyes closed, which is kind of
yeah.
interesting. It's like a choice you could do because it really doesn't matter. And there's just a lot of I think he put a lot of thought into how people would really live in a situation like this with zero light and how they would adapt to it and create myth and legend about things that they don't really even understand. So, yeah, that part of it was really good. Yep.
Yeah, and I really liked how the language reflected that. So you and I might say in colloquial conversation, "Oh, I see what you mean," or "I see your point." They don't know what the word "see" means. They've never even heard that word before. So they would say, "I hear what you mean. I hear your point," and that
Yeah.
that worked pretty well. The reason I wanted to get a little bit into what we thought of the book is um, this book really reminded me of The Inverted World. And by the way, I loved your video on that way back in the day. That was one of the first videos yours I ever watched. And I
Yeah.
went out and read the Crystal, The Inverted World. I didn't review it on the channel because I read it before I started this. But I loved Inverted World too. And I remember you thinking of it fondly as
Yeah.
well. This reminded me of The Inverted World quite a bit, where you kind of have this mystery and the world doesn't quite make sense. I think with The Inverted World, though, the mystery was better kept because you do kind of wonder like what's going on with these gravitational anomalies, what's with these time distortions. But with this book, um, to me anyway, it was pretty obvious right away that these were survivors to some kind of nuclear event because of the way they're referencing cobalt and strontium, and it wasn't a big mystery of what the Great Light was because I mean they're calling it the Great Light. How hard is it to figure out what that was? So it felt a little bit like Discount the Inverted World to me, in that the
Mhm.
mystery was kind of obvious, but overall, I still liked it and I still liked the mythos, even if, the big reveal at the end was a little bit obvious.
Yeah, I think of it, I guess, a little different than Inverted World because with Inverted World, the mystery is so unique to our thinking in a way where this, I think he wrote this like, it's not a mystery to the reader too much what's going on. It's more of a mystery to the people, and you get to see them kind of fumbling through
Yeah,
their life trying to figure out what's going on, where as the reader, yeah, it's very obvious what's going on, that they're in this cave without any kind of light, and they've just adapted to it. So to me, it was more of that, and watching the character. I got more vibes of like, the allegory of the cave, where
mm,
you had a character who had to completely change their way of thinking. And I think it was kind of bad for him because in this underground world, he was going to be top dog.
yeah,
And as the story goes through, he's probably not going to be top dog anymore.
yeah.
His
He got
abilities
himself in a
might
lot of
not be
trouble.
so
Yep.
useful. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
did think that was particularly well done, and we're getting into a little bit of spoilers here. Um, like I said, I don't think that for a reader, it's particularly difficult to spoil this book because if you read it up and read it just a little bit of the back of the book, you'll figure out what happens pretty quick. Um, but I'm just gonna let people know we'll talk about spoilers a little bit now. But
yeah,
yeah, I think it was particularly well done at the end when he goes back to the outside world, and he can't make any sense of what this perception is, and it's like this vast sea of soundless sound with this incredibly loud glowing ball in the air. And yeah, I agree with you there that from the perspective of the characters, this was an enormous life changing mystery, and to look at it through their eyes was really well done and really interesting.
yeah. He, his skills. He was like the most skilled person of using this echolocation to understand his environment. And now the first time he like actually steps outside, it's just like into the void. His click
Yeah,
stones, there's no echoes,
yeah,
and he's now blind, even though he can actually see.
yeah. That was
It,
that
it
was a
was,
wild scene. Yeah,
yeah, and even after they kind of explain what's going on to him, and yeah, we're full into spoilers, but it's pretty obvious what's kind of going on. You do get, we don't have to, I guess, spoil everything of like why they're there and who saves them and stuff. But
yeah,
because that's kind of fun to read about. But
yeah,
um, once he gets out and everything starts getting explained to him, he's still kind of he doesn't want to accept this, and it's
yeah,
gonna, yeah, mess with him.
yeah. Now we're gonna spoil two books here. We'll spoil some Inverted World too. It reminds me at the end when uh, the guy in that book, the protagonist, gets to the ocean and they can't lay any more tracks. And he's like, oh, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to make of this. And so he's like, well, if I can't lay tracks, I'm gonna start swimming. And he just like starts swimming out and realizes that he looks like a fool, and then comes back and then has to like reconcile himself with the new reality. And so again, it reminded me of that too, where he's like, what? There's
Yeah,
light. There's this whole world of light outside. And at first he's like, no way, Moon. I'm not accepting that reality. But then he does just kind of begrudgingly come to terms with it. So cool paradigm shift there.
yeah. Yeah, and this was a very short book. My copy was like 150 pages,
Yeah.
and I think the world building, yeah, it's a thin one.
Yep.
The world building I thought was really well done. This is the second book I've read from Galouye, and he definitely feels like kind of an older book from the 60s or whatever.
Yeah.
Has some of those stylistic things and whatnot, but I thought I really enjoyed this one. I think I liked it about the same as I liked the Simulacron 3, the other book I read of his.
Yeah, and that was put away. We settled on this book was that you'd read some Daniel Galouye before and really liked Simulacron 3. And I picked this book up at a library sale practically for free. And it had been on my TBR for a while. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is the guy that Ira really likes, and said he wants to read more of. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
cool.
Yeah, he only wrote like 5 novels, so you could read his whole catalog pretty quick, and then he wrote a
Yeah.
bunch of short stories.
Simulacron 3, that's the one you reviewed on your channel. And then there's
Yeah.
also Lords of the Psychon. That's an awesome name. And a Scourge of Screamers. Wowzers. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
You
that's the
got
next.
it.
Yeah, I got them all. So that's the next one I want to read, and then all of them have great covers.
Oh, man, look at that cover. That's wild.
And then there's one other one called the Infinite Man,
Oh, cool.
which seems to be kind of his, you know, it has like the lowest ratings of all of them, but I
Oh,
mean, he
really?
only wrote 5 novels. I want to eventually read them all, so.
Yeah. Well, I liked it. Let me see here. One minor beef I had with it, though, was that he didn't really kind of save the day in any way. He had all these
Mhm.
abilities and he was searching for the light, but in the end, he just kind of gets rescued, the same as everybody else, which was a little disappointing to me. I was hoping that because all of his investigations, he would be the one to kind of lead people out. And then also, I would be interested to read the 1951 short story version of this because
Mhm.
it felt just a little padded to me. Not too bad, but it did feel just a little padded where he kind of kept going from person to person, different wise people in the cave going, "What is light? What is darkness? What is light? What is darkness?" And after a while, it's like, "Okay, we get it. Like, you're pontificating about these things. Like, let's get going with the plot here." So I'd be interested to read like the short story to see if it's a little more streamlined.
Yeah. The main beef I had with it was everything about this book was pretty plausible. You could really see something like this happening, except
Yeah.
there is some sort of like telepathic thing that's kind of brought into the
Oh
story.
yeah, that's true.
And I didn't really like it. I didn't think it really added too much to the story or that it needed to be there. And it almost kind of cheapened it a little bit for me because you could really see something like this happening in a very weird circumstance, of course. Um, but this was the one thing that was kind of, magical in a way or something. So,
Yeah, that's true. Occasionally he has these dreams, and it's this woman, the kind survivoress, which by the way, I don't know, kind of a lame name, but anyway, the kind survivoress will contact him in dream state and guide him to her, and then when they met, it didn't feel like a whole lot happened. And then at the
hmm
end, she's kind of one of the people that helps him grow to accept the new world. But yeah, the whole telepathy thing, I guess, was a little bit more far fetched, and I guess you tend to like, it seems to me, harder SF where it's a little more based in the science because I know you worked as an engineer, right? And so you're a smart guy. You like the hard SF. For me, I don't really care. It could be as soft as an ice cream on a summer day, but yeah, that it did feel a little out of place and didn't really gel with the rest of it.
Well, kind of a form of psionics here, and I know it was a big thing during this era of science fiction, and I think sometimes these authors felt like they had to throw some aspect of some psionic ability into a
Yeah.
story to help get it published, and so I understand it and everything, but like I just, that's, and I don't mind soft science, but this is like, made up. I think
Yeah,
people thought maybe this was we were going to get some abilities at some point,
yeah.
but so far we haven't.
Nope, we have not. And the other thing that I thought was a little far fetched was how his hearing could detect if a person had their hair in front of their eyes, or even if someone was like raising an eyebrow in surprise, just by like clicking stones and like telling someone's eyebrows are raised. And I don't know if you did this. While I was reading the book, I was like, could you actually do that? And I like tried closing my eyes and like snapping my fingers to see if I could figure out like where the door in my room was or anything. And like, yeah, I'd be lost in the
Well,
cave. I don't have that ability, man.
well, I think that could actually be true. And there is a I think it's a short YouTube documentary. I watched it years ago. It might be a full-fledged documentary about a guy who's blind, and I think he's over in the UK somewhere. I'd have to try to
Really?
find it. But he uses echolocation, and it's amazing what the guy can do. And they ran all sorts of tests on him, putting him into weird situations and have him describe what his surroundings are. So if you were born that way and you know, like through this breeding of generations of people having to adapt to this, I could see that actually happening. But
Really?
like, I did wonder, like, you could come into a room and through echolocation, you could tell who that was standing across the room. Not just that there was a person there, but you could say that's Joe, you know? So
That's wild, man.
yeah, it's wild, but
Yeah, and that kind of connects to something in the book too, where after he gets some glimpses of light, it's like his brain became rewired to rely on his eyes, and his echolocation abilities really fell off just by a little bit of time in the light.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Um, just by coincidence, I just read another book that was very similar to this. Brian Aldiss Starship
Oh yeah, I've got that one, but it's under a
or
different name,
Nonstop.
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 Yeah,
There is so many similarities. The setting is different, but I think if you like Dark Universe, you definitely like Starship. Starship maybe was a little bit better. I don't know. They were both pretty good in my opinion,
yeah,
but it's a very similar situation that our characters are in, and it's one where the reader knows a lot more than the characters do. You know, so you're kind of going, "Why are you doing this?"
yeah. When a mystery is really well done, like Inverted World, it's a ton of fun, and
Yeah.
it can also be a little too hard to figure out what's going on in the opposite direction. And that's any book by Gene Wolfe where you got to like read
Yep.
it, 4 or 5 times and write down and then compare notes with your buddies and do an exhaustive exegesis on the internet. And then
Yep.
maybe, just maybe, you'll get a little hint of what the heck Wolfe is writing about.
Well, I heard someone talking about Wolf where like you can drive yourself crazy if you go at it as a puzzle, but if it's just a
Yeah.
game you're playing without a solution, then it could be fun. Yeah. Yeah, this one yeah, definitely not in the Gene Wolfe uh, puzzle story, but definitely lots of mystery and stuff going on in it.
So what would you give the book if you want to give it a rating out of stars or whatever you like to use?
I'd give it like 4.5 stars or like a B plus in my opinion.
Yeah, same here. 4 to 5 stars for me works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the world building and really thinking about people without the ability of sight living in a cave and how they would adapt. I think he did a really good job with that. And while you might see some of the little twists and turns coming, it was still kind of a fun ride.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I especially appreciated the zipper ability, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah,
So would you like to get into some hard hitting questions here?
sure.
All right. So what do you think? So at the end, they're rescued and they're rescued against their will. Um, what do you think? Was it the right thing to do to kind of haul everybody out of this situation, or maybe have just let them come out on their own, or maybe just leave them alone? Like, what are your thoughts on that complex moral situation of autonomy
I think, yeah, I think rip off the Band-Aid, get him up onto
Yeah.
the surface, and it might be hard for a little bit, but in the end, it's probably going to be a lot better than living down there fighting off those those bats and
Yeah.
all the other stuff going on, and we find out later, that they had these like pumps and stuff, like pumping water and doing stuff, and this stuff
Mhm.
was starting to fail. So like, they needed to get them out of there. So that's my take.
Yeah, good point. They were, running out of resources down there, and the clock was definitely ticking for them. For me,
Oh, we
oh, go
should
ahead.
we should
Yeah,
we should mention too, like people would think, how do you eat? Well, this was kind of a, I guess we're full spoiler now, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Full spoiler.
So
Yep.
so there was going to be some sort of nuclear war, and people went underground to try to live through this. And most people did fine. They kept lights, they grew plants and everything. Well, this specific cave system, there was like 11 of these, I think, if I
Hmm.
remember right. And they were like number seven. They had names for them. And something happened with their situation, so they lost all their artificial light, but one of these plants still kept growing. So like almost all their food came from this plant that fed off of kind of like geothermal energy from these
Yeah.
little hot springs. And so that was kind of like their only source of food, and they made clothing out of it, and like everything came from this stuff pretty much.
Yeah, the mana plant it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess after eating nothing but mana plant, it would get a little bit tiresome.
Yeah, if you go out and you're shocked by light, once you get some good food in you, you'll forget about that dark, damp cave.
Yeah, have a good burger. Tasty.
Yeah.
Although I don't I'm pescatarian anyway. I have a little seafood, but I've been vegetarian a lot. So I'd be like, oh man, a plant. Can we get that in, you put a little soy sauce in there, whatever. It should be good. Yeah. For
Yeah, they're
me,
fermenting it and everything.
yeah, tasty, man. Make it taste like chicken. Yeah, for me, I could see pulling them out. I also wondered a little bit about like if the surface world, blew itself up in a nuclear war, like is their world really so much better? Like, hey guys, sorry we blew up the world, but oh, we got it under control now. You want to come live with us? I might be like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they can join a cave that kept the lights on, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what did you think of the super deep metaphor of people taking what's outside their everyday experience and making it mystical and divine?
Well, I don't know if you stumbled across this research in the book, but Richard Dawkins, this is one of his favorite books.
Oh, really?
Uh, yeah, it's I think one of his top five that he recommends to people because of that
Hmm.
reason, that he likes to this book shows how people could take something they don't really understand and turn it into myth. And we all know like he's very anti-religion, so he kind of uses it against that. But I don't think you have to take it to that extreme, really. Um, just the Yeah, I do like that you take how many generations would it take? That's a good question. This book makes it sound like these people lost a lot of their knowledge pretty quick and turned it all into myth. But it's something that comes up a lot in science fiction. I always like that kind of theme.
Yeah, it was definitely well done. Because one of the things that Jared, the protagonist, struggles with at the end is not just that his whole world has been turned upside down, but he's lost his concept of God. He's lost his concept of the divine. If light is no longer the almighty God, but just particle waves, what
Hmm.
now? And the people that rescue him kind of say, well, don't get too bumped out about that because we don't know what's beyond the stars, and that's our God, that's our divine, and that's still a big mystery to us. And he's kind of able to go, okay, I guess that works. I'll run with that for now. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, because that's what I kind of go through as well. If I'm having a hard time or kind of wondering about the ultimate nature of life and death, I try to keep a rational perspective, but I also go, well, there's a whole lot we don't know about the universe. Like, I don't know, what is the universe infinite? Does it end? You just come to a wall at the end and it says, you've reached the end of the universe. how did it all start? How will it all end? Like, these are huge
Uh-huh.
questions for me that, I take and kind of arrange in a way that makes sense to me and gives comfort, but that might not necessarily align with objective facts that we probably won't get during my lifetime anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm someone that's always interested in those big questions, and I've thought I've been duped by different aspects of
me too.
civilization or
Yeah,
whatever,
me
thinking
too,
that
man.
maybe there are answers. But now just coming to the point where no one really knows, and just go along for the ride, you know. But it's
Yeah.
still interesting to think about it all.
Yep. Cool, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you wanted to add about the amazing Dark Universe experience?
Um, I mean, you gotta love that cover art.
Yeah, that's metal. That is so
Yeah,
metal.
that is some metal cover art. I didn't look up the cover artist. I maybe you'll put it in the description or something, but yeah, you don't get many books like that anymore. So I love that.
Yeah, I wondered about the cover too, and I didn't see a cover artist in the book, and I'm looking again, I don't see it, but yeah, actually, when I was in the library's shed, just digging through piles of old books, I actually passed on this one because it's my copy's pretty disgusting, and it came from a hospital in New York
Oh
City,
wow.
so I don't know what that is on there. But I got home and I was like, man, that book had an awesome cover. I know it was really beat up, but that cover was just so badass. I really wish I'd gotten it. And next time I was at the
What did
library, I
you
was like, hey, do you mind if I like dig through the shed again and like get that book? And the librarian was like, no, it's fine. And I
say?
paid my 10 cents or whatever and got my copy of the Dark Universe. And I'm glad I did because this was a good read. I hope I didn't
Yeah.
sound like I was being too hard on it in the review, but I liked it. And I would definitely read some more of him again for sure.
Oh, and one other thing, I did write down a couple notes. One thing that was kind of funny was, they had this barrier and it was like forbidden to cross the barrier. And in the very
Yeah.
first scene, that's what Jared is doing. He's
Yep.
basically going out to this forbidden zone. And they said, crossing the barrier is the worst possible offense besides murder and misplacement of bulky objects.
Oh, yeah. That's a good line.
So that's like a sin to just move something in someone's, where they don't expect something to be. So
Yeah, and then
there
and
was,
then at the end when things are falling apart, somebody does leave a bulky object right in the
yeah,
walkway, and he crashes into it, and he's like, "Ah, I'm leaving stuff in the walkway." That was a good
yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah.
and it was
There's a little
interesting.
humor.
Yeah, it's interesting too how a lot of the concepts all were given capital letters, and had like very officious titles. That was kind of fun too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I had a good time with it. Thanks
yeah. It
for
was fun. It was.
putting the word out there about Daniel Galouye because yeah, he's a good writer and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had discovered. I stumbled across the Cordwainer Smith Rediscovery Award on like
Mhm.
Wikipedia somewhere. And it's really cool. You go just look it up, and there's this whole list of authors that they kind of this group felt they had fallen by the wayside, and they wanted them back in the limelight a bit. And so, I think it worked for Galouye a bit. There's been some reprints of his works,
Hmm.
and like I said, he only wrote 5 novels, so he doesn't have a huge catalog. But
Yeah.
I think from what I've read, it's great.
Is Vincent King on there? The British author Vincent King?
I'm not sure. The only other I definitely read this guy. He only wrote mainly short stories named Wayman Gwynn. He was on the
Hmm.
list, and I'd found a collection of short stories, and I read that, and it was like there was one really good one, and the rest are like so. So, you have to take it all with a grain of salt a little bit, but um, yeah, it's fun. It's a good way to find some authors maybe people aren't talking about as much and stuff.
Well, I love it if we could pull some strings and get Vincent King on there because I've always got to beat my Vincent King drum of how amazing he is. And he does this kind of thing really well too, where a character has a perspective of the world and you have no idea what the heck is going on. It's really well done, and there's always these great epiphanies. I love the work of Vincent King, and if I could recommend one to start with, if you're interested, it would be Candyman. He's got some stuff in New Writings in SF. Have it up there on my shelf. And then he wrote four novels, the best of which I think is Candyman. So if you like this kind of thing where the world is really weird, and you don't know what's going on, and then you get all these great epiphanies, Vincent King is tops at that. I love Vincent King. Yeah, trying to get the word out.
Yeah, I don't have anything by him, but I think you mentioned it in a comment, and I looked it up, especially that the one you mentioned, Candyman.
Yeah, I love Candyman. It's
Yeah,
good stuff.
yeah. So I'm
They're
on the
all good.
lookout now.
Yeah, I've read all of his stuff.
Nice.
Cool, man. Well,
All
anything
right.
else?
No, thanks for having me on. This is great.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate it. And good taste in authors. Thanks for bringing some Daniel Galouye to the world, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.